This is KCBD News Channel 11 at 6.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us.
Today, Hollis Daniels took the stand in his own capital murder trial. The 24-year-old pleaded guilty to shooting and killing Officer Floyd East Jr. in October of 2017.
Today, he told the jury he wants to live. KCBD News Channel 11's Shaylee Sanders joins us live from the courthouse with details on the defendant's testimony. Shaylee?
Karen Abner, I do want to start with a warning this evening. Some of this may be difficult for our viewers to hear. It is talking about suicide, but it's what the testimony discussed today. So today the defense asked Hollis Daniels what he thinks his punishment should be. And he said, quote, "I think this is a terrible tragedy. I think it is totally fair to say a life for a life." But then Daniels says, on the other hand, over the last 5 years, he's been thinking about his family. He's been getting healthy, and he has a desire to live. But he said ultimately he just wants what Officer East's widow wants, and he realizes nothing that happens is going to help what he's already done. Daniels testified that he was suicidal when he killed Officer East, and he had actually stolen at gunpoint 200 Xanax pills with a plan to end his life before the end of the month. The state said instead of killing himself, he decided to kill Officer East, and Daniels responded and said it's something that he has thought about for years now, and he wonders why he didn't just kill himself. And that was incredibly difficult testimony to hear for both sides. I heard tears in the courtroom coming from Officer East's family, from Daniels' family. At one point, the judge had to remind the gallery not to get emotional and to not distract the jury. Now, today, we heard from Hollis Daniels himself about how he got the gun into the police department, the gun he used to kill Officer East. We actually learned new information today. We heard that he had the gun in his waistband when he was patted down by officers. But Daniels said that every time the officer patted him down, that gun fell further and further down his pant leg, so they never found it. He said at some point when he was riding from his dorm to the police department, he was able to get the gun from the bottom of his pant leg back into his waistband while he was handcuffed. Now, the defense said, "How did you do that?" He says, "I don't really remember it." He says he was on Xanax, and there are memory gaps when he thinks about that evening. However, he does remember the moment that he pulled the trigger. Closing statements will begin tomorrow. We'll be bringing you updates from right here at the courthouse. Karen and Abner.
Thank you, Shaylee.